Chelsea 3, Crystal Palace 1. And as usual, we are still watching Rosenior to learn how his Chelsea team will play going forward. And there are a few new things that we learned about him from this Crystal Palace game. So let us look at how Chelsea were on the ball, how they were off the ball. Now, one thing that I observed in this game, which I think was very different from Maresca's era that the players are having to adapt to, is that Chelsea tend to move the ball quicker. They still build that from the back. They still want to control the ball. But when building that from the back, they tend to take quicker passes and get the ball off field as quickly as possible instead of focusing on retaining and controlling possession and that slow methodical build-up from Maresca era. Look at what I'm talking about. This is Chelsea building out from the back. Of course, we are all familiar with this Maresca's build-up structure, using the goalkeeper to sort of make up a back four with the full back split wide. And then in midfield, the double pivot in midfield was usually Caicedo, Andre Santos. And we will talk a lot about Andre Santos in this video. And then Cucurella inverts, not as a defensive midfielder now, but high up, almost as one of the inverted number 10s. And then what we are keeping an eye on is how quickly Chelsea shifts this ball upfield without taking unnecessary passes. Now, Neto drops in, feeds Cucurella, and Chelsea are immediately down the line. Under Maresca, they would have waited and allowed everybody to get into position before trying to switch play from one side to another. But with this one, it was direct. Cucurella sweeps it wide. Estevao takes on his defender, and then Enzo Fernandez crosses the ball across goal again. This did not result in a goal, but look at Chelsea moving the ball a bit quicker again in this game. Again, it's one of those Chelsea build-up that we are used to. The 4 players and then the 2 pivots. But this is something that actually happened a lot of times in this game, where Chelsea, from the build-up or from winning the ball deep in their own half, we are not patiently trying to pry their way into Palace half. They just shifted the ball quicker, moved it up the pitch, shifted it from side to side as quickly as they can to get upfield. I think this is how Rosenior wants to play. And then something else again is that Chelsea aggression is back. That pressing one-on-one all over the pitch. Let's look at a few examples of it in this game. Crystal Palace got the ball in midfield here and then rotated the ball back to try to patiently build out from the back. But notice that immediately Chelsea committed players forward, trying to hold that press up front, trying to make sure that Crystal Palace can't play the ball out of their own half. And if you've been watching Chelsea, you know this by now. This 1-versus-1 aggression all over the pitch, making sure that Crystal Palace do not have a free player to receive the ball. On many occasions, they forced Crystal Palace to go long. And whenever Crystal Palace went long, especially to try to find Mateta, you would always notice that either Chaloba or Badashi were tight on Mateta to make sure that he's not even able to control the ball. Look at another example. Crystal Palace are building out of the back again. And like I mentioned in the previous clip, it's still the same 1-versus-1 pressing all over the pitch. Chelsea actually committed players high up the pitch. And it's noteworthy that even Cucurella jumps out of the back like we used to know him under Maresca to also join in the press. And then, interestingly enough, when Mateta steps out of his attacking role into midfield to join, that's Badashi actively upwards. That's Badashi behind him. From defense, steps up to press him as well. This was the reason why Crystal Palace could not get into any rhythm in the game at all. And mind you, when Badashi steps up, it is Andre Santos who has gone to the defense to cover him. We will talk about Andre Santos in a little bit. And that Chelsea pressing as well, I think, was what contributed to the mistake that Palace made for Chelsea's opening goal. Look at it. I think much of this was Chelsea's willingness to press inside their own half, to go aggressive and go tight, that forced this back pass that Estevao just lashed onto. And once he was through on goal, he finished as you would expect Estevao to. Again, is that Chelsea's aggression, that pressing all over the pitch, which helped Chelsea. But now, the interesting thing I saw in this game that I actually want to talk about is what Chelsea is doing once they have to defend. I don't think we've seen Chelsea defend in a back 5 under Maresca at all. But under Rosenior, I think it's what Rosenior wants to do when Chelsea are under attack, is to collapse into a back 5. And Andre Santos, I think it's going to be a very, very influential player for Rosenior because he's the one who drops into that defense to almost become a centre back. I saw it the first time and I thought it was a mistake. Look at this. Now, this is Crystal Palace build-up, and then they were able to launch the ball into Chelsea's half. And they still got control of the ball. And then if you notice, Chelsea has moved into a back 5. And that player highlighted right there is Andre Santos. Now, I saw this about 17 minutes into the game, and I thought maybe it's just one of those once-in-a-game phase of play that he just found himself there. But as the game went on, I started to discover that this was actually what Liam Rosenior wants him to do. Look at it again. Another Crystal Palace build-up as usual, and then they were able to take the ball long. But once Chelsea were under attack in this situation, just take a look. It's collapsed into a back 5 immediately. And what you will notice again, this is Andre Santos right here. He's the one who is making the third centre back in this game, as it were, almost like the third right-sided centre back. And he remained there. Chelsea basically set up in a 5-3-2. That's still Andre Santos right there. He hasn't shifted from that central defensive position at all. And then Chelsea were defending in a 5-3-2. This is not something that we've seen Chelsea do before. And then in that 5-3-2, the double pivot became Enzo Fernandez and Moises Caicedo. This is not a defensive shape, like I said, that we've seen Chelsea play in before. Because usually when teams play in a 5-3-2 in defense, it's usually because they will start in a 3-4-3 or a 3-5-2 with three traditional center backs, and then the wing backs will come in to make the back five. But in this Chelsea setup, they're only starting with two center backs. So Andre Santos, who is a defensive midfielder, is the one who drops back to become a center back. And I think he will be important for Rosenior going forward, especially if Rosenior wants to keep doing this. Because I don't think that you would want Caicedo to drop into that position. Especially if you play Caicedo and Enzo Fernandez as your midfield base. If Caicedo drops in, Fernandez on his own will not be able to be the destroyer in front of that defense. I don't know if that makes sense to anybody. So I think going forward, we're going to be seeing Caicedo and Andre Santos as the midfield pivots for Chelsea. But again, just for good measure, look at that Chelsea going into a back five with Andre Santos in the defense again. And I made this theory clip just to make sure that it's not something that happened just once in this game. Again, Palace are on the attack again. And once this ball comes back, look at Chelsea settling into a back five again. This is what Chelsea were 1-0 up already. And if you notice again, the right-sided centre back here is Andre Santos. And of course, when this ball comes in, it's well defended. I mean, you get the whole picture of what is going on with Chelsea. And then talking about moving the ball quicker, Chelsea's second goal, I think, had a resemblance of that as well. Chelsea just basically turning off possession, having a goal quickly. This is it. Again, mind you, when Chelsea were collapsed into a back four here or onto a back five, take a look again. This is Andre Santos, who is in the heart of defense again, almost played as the center back here. And then once Chelsea moved this ball forward, it was just one touch, a swift 1-2, and Chelsea were behind. There was no trying to slowly build up from the back and maintain, that slow, methodic build-up from Enzo Maresca. I think that is another major change that the players have to adapt to. And to be honest with you, there were a lot of misplaced passes in this game. We're trying to switch the ball quickly. Chelsea made very wrong passes. And I think this is something that the players have to adapt to. They are used to slow, patient build-up under Maresca. But now they have to transition into quickly switching the ball and moving the ball around before the opponent actually settles into a defensive shape. But then, it's just my observation from the game. We are still observing Liam Rosenior. Hopefully, we are now starting to get an idea of how his Chelsea team wants to play so that we can properly analyze Chelsea's matches going forward. If you enjoy videos like this, of course, hit the subscribe button.